Hi everybody, we're gonna show you a tutorial on how to make a basic bodice dress. So we'll start with a dress that fits you, pattern, and your fabric. Before cutting out your dress, we always recommend to wash or iron your fabric ahead of time. That way if there's any room for shrinkage, it would be done before cutting. And also measure your fabric that you do have the adequate amount needed for yourself. We will begin with measuring the sleeve length. And when you measure, you want to find the longest points. It'll be here at the top of your shoulder down to the bottom. And then we'll add an inch for that measurement, and that will be our cut length, because we need to allow for the hemming and the seams that we're going to sew up inside the shoulder. So this sleeve is 25 inches, and so we'll write down 26 inches to cut it at. And then for the length of the dress, you start at the waist and you find your seam, that the side seam here. This is going to be the straightest seam, because if we go at a diagonal, it'll give you a false measurement. You want to follow this seam always to know your true length, finished length. So this length is finished at 43 inches, and we'll add 2 inches for hemming and seam allowance. Okay, so this is the first skirt. I'm doing 45 inches, because that was what my measurement told me. There's the one, and then we'll do the second one. That's the front, and the back will be the same. If you're doing a talichkia, these two measurements would be different. But this is the bodice, so the lengths are the same in the front and the back. Okay. And then we'll do the sleeve. So 26 inches for the sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside. This is for the bodice, but for the sleeve, we're going to fold it in half and then half again. So you got your factory edge right here meeting each other, and then you'll take it and fold it in half again. So you got a double layer. Okay, so here's my pattern. I'm laying the pattern down. This is the fold edge, and if it helps, you can always mark your pattern to say fold. And so this should be a double fold on this side. And then we're going to cut along this side of the pattern. And you'll have 4 layers of the sleeve. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh gosh. So I already started cutting it. Mom always told me the scissors are an extension of your hand, so you just got to get comfortable with them, and they'll just glide with the fabric. Okay, so we have so far our 2 pieces cut out, front and back, same length. Our sleeves, fold them nice and neat and put them aside, and then we'll start to cut out the pattern for the bodice. All right, so for this dress, the bodice, we're gonna measure the length of it so we know how much fabric to cut. Her bodice measures at 17 inches. So we're gonna need the broadcloth or put-cloth in the back, and we can cut it. Usually the store sells them at 18 inches, so this one's a little more, but we'll take it also by the factory edge, measure by the factory edge. See the cross grain, you could tell that it got ripped down this side, but this edge is the factory edge. So we're gonna do the fold over with the factory edge being parallel to the fold. If you do it the opposite, you'll kind of have a wonky dress, but nobody will know, I guess. Okay, and so our fabric, we're gonna cut 17 inches, and then the rest of it will be remaining for our belt. I'll do like 17 and a half just to give it some wiggle room. All right, and we're gonna do the exact same thing as we did on the broadcloth. We'll just double it on top. So here's my factory edge, selvage edge, whatever you want to call it. Fold it over. And you want to get this nice and even. If it wiggles, just use your fingers. We'll place the pattern right on top. Go along with the grain, the folded edge. Get as close as you can. If you're a beginner, you can always do this on an ironing board and put pins into your pattern and fabric so that it doesn't move. After a while, you kind of get the feel of where to place your hands and how to hold it without moving. But basically, you just want the pattern to stay put as you cut. We're using the same piece to do the back. We've folded it over just like we did the front, just moving down the fabric. And now we're adding the fabric piece. Get it nice and even. So there's a fold here, but we're gonna actually end up cutting the fold because this is where our zipper is gonna go. So here's our pattern, and we'll cut around the whole entire thing, including this. Okay, so now we have everything cut out, and we got our sleeve, our back, our front skirt, and our back skirt. Next, we're going to iron on some Pellon onto the front and the back, all the seams that we're going to take that are going to be folded over. Okay, so now we're adding on a little strip of Pellon along the neckline. And we also did it to the back. So this is where the zipper is going to go. This is your back opening. All right, so now I put our fabric together. This is the broadcloth and the fabric, and we're gonna do right sides together. So this is the left side, we put the Pellon on, and let's say if this fabric was a print, we'd put the print side that's darker facing. So this is the right side, this is the right side together. So this is the left side of the fabric, and this is the left side. And we're just basically gonna sew down the front opening. Do your seam allowance. I know people do different amounts. I go about 1/4 inch, and then your seam size usually in the middle, not too wide. Do a little back tack. And then always iron on the left side to protect your garment from getting any burn marks or anything that's extra high heat from your iron. Start with the left and then you can do your finish iron at the top on the right. All right, now we're gonna attach the front to the back. We're just gonna tack down the shoulders. So the left side is on the back, the right side is facing up. So it looks like that. And then we'll take our back pieces, which are cut out just like the broadcloth, and we're gonna follow it along down like that. So stop right at that edge where the front is. Well, I guess I'll finish it first. So right at the edge, and then we'll follow it down. I'm going to go one more step forward. All right, so now we're doing the other side. I'm going to start from the bottom of where the zipper would go. Again, that's the left side, and then this right side, that's the right sides together. Pretty sides together. So I already tacked the shoulder, and we're gonna cover it. Like this. Scoot it out of the way if it's underneath or in the way. Now I'm gonna cut little slits where if you have a square. All right, so I'm gonna cut a slit in the corners. That way it'll fold out nicely. And then all of these extra corners, I'm gonna clip them as well, because this is gonna be like the nice corners of our garment, and if there's more fabric needed then it'll get bulky. So let's kind of clean up the edges around. Okay, and now we're gonna just flip it out So that's the corner. I'll even take my scissors with not such a sharp edge and just kind of guide it out a little bit. So that way it looks like a nice clean finish. And then we'll give it a nice iron on both sides. Next, we're going to attach the sleeve to the bodice, and we're going to do right sides together again. Remember, pretty sides together. So the right side of our sleeve is going to be the side that you would wear it on. So this is the inside, left side, right side. So you make sure that it's sewn on the right side, because if you sew it on the left side, you're going to be disappointed and have this showing on the wrong side. So I'm going to take this edge, bring it to the side over here. This is basically where your armpit is, and we'll just attach. You want to not pull on the top, because it'll give you a funny pucker. This is the back underneath your arm a little bit, so you want to almost ease it in. If there's one that you want to hold firmer, it would be the bottom, but not by much. The top definitely needs to just really relax and be eased in. If it feels like it's puckering too much, lift your foot, put it down, and then continue. And so our sleeve is going to be a lot longer than the bodice, and that's why we created these to make a gather. And we're going to just eyeball it about 2 inches. So let's see how I pulled that. About 2 inches from the center on each side. So about there and about there. And if you would like, you can always mark it with a pen. That's what I used to do in the beginning. Now I just eyeball it, but that's your choice how you'd want to do it. So I could already see it's not on center. So my needle is down, my foot is down. Take your foot off the pedal, that way you're not driving on your finger. And then just sort of ease in these gathers as you're holding it firmly. Check it. This one is almost perfect. You can go a little bit more, and then I'll check. Perfect. So now that it fits all the way through, I just need to make this nice and even so it looks pretty, and then finish sewing it on. So see how there's only 1 inch here and a little more here? You could pull it up. Just use your finger. Okay, I think that looks good, and we'll just continue. So if you sew on this side of the stitch, it'll hide it. And so because we tacked this down with the sticky glue underneath, it's not puckering or moving. I know in the past it would be kind of tough for beginners, but it works with you this way. Whatever your seam allowance is, so say mine is just a hair over 1/4 inch, your goal is to try to stay even on that same measurement all throughout so that your garment looks even. So take note of that at the very beginning of your sewing. You could see on the back how even or uneven it is afterwards. And then I always recommend going over it a second time, just in case something is a little wobbly somewhere. You can give it a nice straight stitch. But that's it basically. there you go, your sleeve is attached. We'll give it an overseam, an iron, but there's your sleeve. So now all we got to do is hem up these sides. So again, right sides together. We're going to flip it inside out and start at the top of our sleeve. We're just going to sew all the way down, straight stitch. You want this seam and this seam to match up. Okay, now if those seams matched up, it'll look nice and clean there. Go ahead and take this also to the overseamer and run it through, and do the other side as well. All right, at this point we have the bodice done. The sleeves are on. All we need to do is attach the skirt. So what we're gonna do is get the skirt prepared to attach it on. One thing I didn't talk about at the beginning when Mikrayelia was how much gathers do you prefer at the waistline? So depending on your preference, if you want more gathers, you wouldn't do any adjustments here, but if you want less gathers, you can have more or less depending on how wide your fabric is. So the length of the dress we already cut. Remember that was this factory edge. So we're leaving at 45 because that's what we measured, we wanted it to be. Now if she wants it a little bit less gathered, I'm just gonna cut some of this off, toss that, and we'll hem this or even run it through the overseamer so that it doesn't leave these fuzzies at the end. I know some people don't want too many gathers here, so I already did one. I think I'm gonna cut like 10 inches off. So since this width of this fabric is 60 inches, I want it to be 50 inches. So I'll just take 10 inches. I know some people do a little more, some do a little less, but we'll do 10 and strip it all the way down. Okay, so that it doesn't keep fraying like that, we're gonna do a cute little hem or overseam this side. So I already did one to show you. It's already overseamed or hemmed. That's what it looks like. And so now what we're gonna do, once I do that to the other piece, is we're gonna sew the skirt together. The length sides, these sides. I'm gonna take that side, and of course right sides together again, and we're gonna just do a straight stitch all the way down on this side and do the same thing on the opposite side of the fabric. Once that's done, we'll go on to the back to get it ready for the zipper. Okay, so I started sewing my straight stitch, and I started here because you can probably do less, but basically I want to avoid any of these little dots, because what's going to happen is when I open the skirt, and now it's going to be, this is going to be your hip essentially. If you sewed any closer, these dots would show. So that's why I'm going here. So there's no real like rule of thumb of where to be, but more or less to avoid the dots. And so once I'm done sewing, I'll open this up and I'm gonna iron it nice and flat. You know how your dress looks like on the inside, and that's gonna look like on the outside. And then we're gonna just go all the way down. Try not to pull one more than the other. Like keep both fabrics as equal as possible to each other. And the straighter the better, just that way you won't have a curvy hip line. Okay, and then we'll do this to the other side. So on the other side, this is where we cut the 10 inches off. One side I already hemmed, and I need to hem this side as well, because if I don't, it'll be fraying everywhere. So I'm gonna do that right now, really quick. And if you don't wanna do this, another fast way, you just over seam it, so that way it won't fray. Okay, so I'm finishing up with this hem now, and we're gonna do the same thing, just right sides together. Same thing as we did on this side. It's just that mine are cut now on this side. This wasn't a cut, it's just the only difference. But so since there's no extra dots, I don't need to go that far. I'll go a little closer. So maybe like ½ an inch or something. That's probably more than enough. See, then it'll iron down like that. Okay, so after we sewed those sides together, I'm gonna iron it on the left side. Just iron it down. And do that on both sides. Okay, so now we have a nice big circle, I guess, essentially. And what we're gonna do is find the center. These are the sides of our lengths. We'll find the center, and we're gonna cut it and hem it there to prepare it for the zipper. So I already did that. I took these sides and I met them up, and I ironed it flat here, so I know where the center is, right there. So I'm gonna cut maybe 5 inches or so down. So the reason I'm doing this is because the bodice, this is where your hip is not wide enough to fit over your shoulders and everywhere else, so we do need to open up this area so that it could fit over the body when you put the dress on. So now I'm going to hem it. I know some people over seam it. You can do that. I guess to me it's just faster this way. It's going to be hidden in the end anyway, so don't be too worried about how straight or perfect the width of it will be, because it is kind of a funky angle. The zipper will hide it. Okay, so I'll go iron it, but basically that's what your back is going to look like. So this is going to be the back, and I just ironed it. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to fold it on the half like this, and I'm going to start to stitch about right there, and I'm going to just run it off so that when it opens, it'll like hide these sides. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. Do a little back tack. Keep it even on the top. And it's just gonna go off. So we'll just iron that out. And then this is gonna be hidden for your zipper. Basically gonna look like that. Let's be ready for that. Okay, now I'm just gonna iron it down so it'll be all nice and ready for attaching the zipper. So you saw that's in the back. We have two options at this point. We want to add gathers all the way across. This is the waist, all the way. And that'll be, what, 100 inches? Because we cut them down to 50 on each side. So I have a foot on my machine here. This is a gathering foot, and it actually will gather it for you. If you don't have one, you'll do the same concept as what you did for the sleeve. You would make 2 straight stitches and just pull it along until all of it is gathered. But I have this foot, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to put it on the highest, the largest step, the largest size, because the bigger the size of the stitch, the more gathers it does in less amount of work. So probably going to leave like an inch or so from the side so that I could attach my zipper at that point. And so yeah, just gonna sew. If you put your finger in the back, it'll gather a little more, or control it. Oh, I ran out of thread. Let me make some more. Okay, so now we're gonna make sure that this is enough gathers. Either it's too much or not enough. It looks like definitely not enough. So I'm gonna grab the bodice dress and compare the width, and then we'll go from there. Now that we've put in the gathers, the extra gathers that we needed, I'm gonna double check, make sure that it's the correct amount for me. And so I took our bodice and I folded it on the half, and it looks like that's just about what I need. This extra amount is gonna slide over on this end here, and I'll show you what I mean in a bit, but give or take, that's pretty much what we need. Before we attach the skirt to the bodice, make sure that your back is even. Sometimes, you know, one is shorter or longer than the other. If it is, cut them down so they're both even, so that you have a nice even back in the front as well. Our bodice is down, and we're gonna attach the skirt now. There's 3 points that we need that are gonna need to match up, and it's gonna be the side lengths. Remember these that we sewed? There's these 2, the hips. So they need to match up to our armpit side so that the length of the dress continues all with one nice even seam. So here's the first one, and you want to do right sides together again. So remember, this is our left side, this is our left side, right side and right sides together. So match up those seams right there, and that'll show you how much you have here. I have a little bit extra, but I'm gonna just squeeze it in to make it work. Then match, before we start sewing, just kind of check out where you are. Does it match up here? it's off by an inch, but what I'll do as we're sewing is I'll probably pull it a little bit together to work it in. If you're a beginner, I would recommend taking a pin, pinning these sides together so that your reference points don't get moved around. And the middle points, you'll be able to work it in, but you want these to stay. We're gonna start with attaching the skirt in the back where the zipper is gonna go. So remember that spot we left open a little bit? And we ironed it down. That's where we're gonna begin. So where we ironed it down, that's gonna be our marker for where we begin to sew. So I'm gonna take that spot where we ironed it and fold it over in the back. And so essentially that should be where the gathers begin. So I hope that makes sense. You got your that back there and this over here. We'll give it a back tap. Okay, so my seam is like a lot further. So what I'm gonna do is bring it over and I'm just gonna work in this extra pieces or extra gathers. If you did it like the sleeve, you know, where you did the 2 straight stitches, you could have just pulled it at this point and it'd be a little easier to handle. So you gotta pros and cons with the gathering foot. Now finishing it off on the other side, I'm gonna do the same thing. I have a little left over and we're just gonna loop it around like that. So it'll be a nice clean finish. Okay, so it should look like that. And then when you flip it out, it'll be finished like that. And so now your zipper has space to go. At this point, I would double check your stitching, make sure that it's even, and probably on the broadcloth would be the best place to check. If it's like really wobbly, I would go a second time to even it out, and then I would go and then just go ahead and go over seam it. After it's over seamed, iron the seams down. We'll be attaching the zipper in. I'm just gonna tuck it in like this. I'm gonna just sew all the way down and go back up Really easy. One more time, we want to make sure that this line matches and that this is even. Sometimes when we're attaching this, if our seam allowances are not even, it'll look like this. You could do that, but it'll look not even. So make sure to get them evened out. Either take some in or take a little less out here. But the idea is to have them perfectly straight here and perfectly straight there. That way when you zip up the zipper, it'll all look in line. Okay, so here's my zipper. I'm gonna just fold over this top edge to the back. And of the dress is going to be hemming it. So you're just going to measure the length of your dress, which we already did. 45 was the finished length. And so you'll just figure out your amount that you need to turn it. I think this dress is going to be 3/4 of an inch like that. And I'm going to take my measuring stick. There's my 3/4. Let's do a little back tack. Double check yourself. You can easily get bigger or smaller quickly. Okay, once you're done with the hem, you want to put your dress on inside out and iron the entire bottom of the dress on the left side like that. And while you're doing that, you'll just go along and iron the rest of the dress and make it brand new. Remember, ironing is what makes the product look finished. We're not going to do the belts because I think everyone has a different preference on how they like their belt. But I hope this video was helpful and you can learn something from it. Okay, спасибо, everyone, for watching.